welcome to our Leadership Mansfield chit chat, I guess. Doing it the new way virtually through Zoom. Who expected that we would see this day? I thought the worst we could see was the tire blowout after our retreat, but the world's changed quite a bit. So just want to, talk to the class about what's going on right now, their experience with Leadership Mansfield, and hopefully this is going to inspire people to apply. The applications are live right now, and it's a great program. So I want to hear from the class. Carla, how would you describe Leadership Mansfield?
I was a little nervous to do Leadership Mansfield, the commitment of the day, a full day, just the time blocking. But, once you got in and you got started, I loved it. I'm sorry that we didn't get to finish out some of our classes. It was jam-packed, and you kind of felt like some days you really can't not look at your phone, but you can. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed getting to meet all of y'all and look forward to continuing our relationships and friendships.
Absolutely agree with you. I also didn't think I'd be able to put my phone away for 8 hours, but it was totally worth it. And now I know I can do that. So that's great. What about you, Mike?
Well, I would tell you, Washima, Leadership Mansfield was just so exciting for me. I thought I already knew a lot of the leaders in Mansfield, but once we started going around and visiting the different locations throughout the city, we were introduced to so many people that we never had relationships with, not only people in the city, but also people in our class. And I'm just so excited about the fact that I have been able to build some relationships with some of the people in our class. And I hope that we will be able to continue those relationships as we go forward. Leadership Mansfield taught me a lot about the city and the inner workings of how the city operates. It also showed us a lot in regards to some of the challenges that our city faces as well. But more than anything else, it really gave us an opportunity to understand how we fit into how things operate in the city and how we can contribute in the future. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of that, and hopefully I can be a positive contribution to the city of Mansfield as well.
That is a very good response, and I don't think anybody wants to go after you, but I will put the pressure on Jordan.
All that down. He had a paragraph sitting right here. Dang, bro. But I do want to say that I kind of want to piggyback just off one thing he said. That I thought it was really cool. The all the details and all the effort they go through to let us know about our community, about community leaders, about different aspects of our community. I periodically go down the back roads of Mansfield and pass by the cemetery there that we spent some time at. And I got to be honest with you, I fight tears back every time I pass that place because of the powerful time that we had spent there. And just, it just blew me away to see that in our city. But all of the things that we experienced every single day, spent that time in that Far Best Theater and learned so many things there, and just so many things I thought we were introduced to. And I've been in the community for 6 years, and as a director of a nonprofit, and I spend a lot of time just meeting people in the community, and I learned a tremendous amount through Leadership Mansfield. So I ditto so many things that he said.
What about you, Velvet?
So I work in Mansfield, but I do not live in Mansfield. So for the class, for me, being a history buff, just learning about the history of Mansfield was wonderful. I really enjoyed that, as well as how to be integrated within the community, from anywhere from entertainment to government, but then also the volunteer opportunities and how you can contribute to the city of Mansfield and be more successful and assist the city in this goal to be the premier city within Texas for people to want to live and raise families, or even for those single people. So it was wonderful to learn all of the history behind Mansfield, but then once again, how I could be successful in the community. it actually made me consider selling my house where I live now and moving there because there was so much opportunity. Once again, anything from entertainment to shopping and eating, as well as how you can contribute and give back to those in need. Most people think, these communities such as Mansfield, they're fast-moving communities, and they think that they do not have individuals in the community that have need. They don't realize how many people have need. So it was nice to find that information out and how to contribute. So for me, I love the class. I love all of the exercise opportunities we had because we did do a lot of exercising as well from start to finish, walking throughout the community. But then also in the very beginning when we sweated a lot together and got really intimate. So yes, I loved it.
That is awesome. That's a really good segue into my next question, which is, how was your experience with the class? And Velvet, I'm just going to ask you first, since you talked about the intimacy and sweating together.
Yeah, so as you kind of mentioned in the beginning, we had, of course, the big blowout, and we learned how to deal with each other and prepared us for what we're going through now, just in society with the pandemic. We were all together. We had been sweating together already just because of the ropes course we participated in, and building that teamwork. So it's leadership, but it's also learning how to be a good team player as well. And then homing in on everyone's strengths as leaders.
That's awesome. I totally agree with you. Not just the people we were with, but the people we met. I know more people in the community now. I felt like I was just confined to people that I would see at networking events and so forth. And even those people I got to talk to and have in-depth conversations and just build more rapport. So it's just a really good experience overall. We have some new people on the call. Keisha, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing well. So I'm going to ask you, how was your experience with the Leadership Mansfield class?
It was very good. I enjoyed the moments that we were all able to share as far as the team building. I thought all of the team building activities were very necessary for us to get to know one another. And as we progressed through this process, because of the early onset of team building, there were times when we needed to trust each other as we were doing different activities, especially like with our project. We were able to trust one another in this process and understand that we work as a team and we can do things together.
I loved the class. I mean, getting up early and being there and having breakfast and then starting out with some of our, like you said, Keisha said, our team building exercises. I mean, I'm never going to look at a penny differently. Some of the things we had to draw and do and that were totally not what I expected. I have to admit, nobody really prepared me for Leadership Mansfield exactly, other than we'd be doing a lot of walking and touring and that type of stuff. But I mean, I didn't realize some of the other things we would be doing. One thing I don't know if y'all remember the gentleman at the hospital that had the dogs, and he passed away the last couple of months, and that was very sad for me. I mean, I'm glad we got to meet him and the dogs and hear his story, and just so many different little things. I mean, like you said, I thought I was active in the community, but there definitely is a lot more things going on and that you can get involved in, and just excited for the future after the pandemic.
Yes, after the pandemic. Totally agree with you. Well, I'm going to move on to the next question. Jordan, I'm going to ask you first. How has Leadership Mansfield impacted your work or leadership style?
I would say that I found myself, whenever Dizzy Dick would get up there to speak or give an analogy or something, I would find myself jotting that leadership technique down because it was gold. like every time he got up there and gave an analogy. I mean, the rubber chicken alone was one of the coolest, like the tennis balls, and then it turned into a rubber chicken. It's just like, I found myself using that analogy so many times. And with what I do, I minister to high school kids. And so a lot of them in broken home lives, or a lot of them are dealing with different high school drama situations. And I found myself able to use that as an analogy, and so many different things that we were introduced to in that class. And so that has been, as far as leadership style and being able to implement some of the leadership techniques, has been that. But as far as some of the relationships that were developed with other nonprofits that we met, and I was able to connect with them and share nonprofit ideas and things like that. And I would say that Kat and I gleaned a lot from those elements of our time together. And so as a whole, my work life and leadership has really benefited tremendously from the class.
That's awesome. And Mike, I'm going to ask you the same question. How has Leadership Mansfield impacted your work and or leadership style?
Well, I would tell you it's impacted mine tremendously. I had taken situational leadership classes long time ago. And in those situational leadership classes, it always talked about how you deal with a particular situation based on what is happening at that time, and not necessarily how you deal with every situation that takes place. And I think Dizzy Dick did a great job of really breaking down and analyzing for us different situations we may find ourselves in and how we deal with those particular situations at that time. It was so exciting to be in the classrooms and just hear all of the other leaders in the room. Our class had such great leaders in the classroom who really talked and shared about how they deal with different things in their lives and on their daily basis as well. So what I gleaned from the class more than anything else is that the old saying of it's more than one way to skin a cat, I think this was really an opportunity for me to really look at situations differently and base them on their own merit versus basing them on how I would deal with that situation regardless of who I was dealing with or what was going on around me at that time. So this really made a big impact on me. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a class that, I've suggested it to everybody that I know, that you really need to try to sign up for this class and be a part of it, because I think it will have an impact on your leadership style as you go forward.
I would like for you to win the Academy Awards and deliver a speech. That is very good. So I don't think anybody wants to go after you now. I'm going to move on to the next question. So Velvet, how do you plan on staying connected in the community after the program is over?
So our team project was Meals on Wheels, and we did an interview with one of their marketing directors. I guess it's been a week now, and learned quite a bit about the operation and found out that they have other services that they offer to include prescriptions. And so that really intrigued me, since I am a pharmacist. And right now what they have is pharmacy technicians who review medications, but then there's not a pharmacist who actually confirms and audits those reviewing of the pharmacy technicians. And so I did provide my information to the marketing director. She was very excited, said that she would contact me in regards to possibly being one of the board members for Meals on Wheels in Tarrant County. And so I'm excited and looking forward to that opportunity, and hope that I have an opportunity to be able to serve and give back to not only Mansfield, but all of Tarrant County. So I'm broadening my horizons a little bit, but I'm hoping that I get that opportunity to be able to assist in that arena.
That is awesome. Congratulations, and you're going to do great.
Thank
Keisha,
you.
I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you plan on staying involved?
So as an educator, everything I do goes back to students. And so as we journeyed through this process, and we were going to visit all of the nonprofits, and I was able to see all of the ways they contribute to our community, my focus kept going back to the students in Mansfield ISD, and how can I get them involved? And so I have already contacted many of the various sponsors at the high school level, because I know a lot of the students have to get community hours. I also know right now with COVID-19, a lot of them were not able to get the hours they needed for the spring semester. And so one of the ways that I am really going to stay involved and contribute is have our students begin to get involved. Because as generations progress, we have to pass the process down so that our younger individuals understand and will be able to carry on as we get older. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to do. I'm going to ensure that our Mansfield ISD students are involved with the community works that are going on around them.
All right, so why would you encourage the citizens around Mansfield to go through with Leadership Mansfield? Jordan, I'm going to ask you that question.
Yeah, I think because there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to learn about our community. And I think it's important if you want to do business or you want to serve or you want to make a living and live in a community, then you ought to know the ins and outs of the community, the leaders, the way it ticks, the way it operates. And I think it's important to know that. And so I would encourage anybody that wants to do any of those things in this community to jump in Leadership Mansfield and serve and be a part of the community.
Well, piggybacking off of Jordan, there is so many things that we don't know. I mean, just from going to the school board meetings to the city council meetings there's so much stuff that you can do just as a citizen, and serving your fellow citizens. I mean, to me, again, I thought I knew more than I knew, but it really is a great program.
Totally agree with you. So the last few questions are about, COVID-19, and we have to address that. So what was the pre and post COVID challenge you were faced with during Leadership Mansfield? And Keisha, I'll start with you.
Yes, so one of the challenges that I feel we faced as a leadership group was deciding on what would be the best project for our group. Many times when you have a lot of leaders in a room, it's hard for us to come together. But one thing that we did have was the tenacity to stay with it. And I do believe that prior to COVID-19, we did establish a firm process and a firm project for our group. Post-COVID, completing the project was our challenge because we were actually in the process of creating our podcast for our project, and we were no longer able to do that when COVID-19 became a pandemic for us. So one of the things that we were having to do is decide how we were going to complete this project. And I think as a group and a leadership group, we've done a phenomenal job in completing the process and doing what we set out to do prior to COVID-19.
Great response. And if anybody asked me the question, I would have said the same thing. Mike, I'm going to ask you the same question. What were your, some of the challenges that we faced that you picked up post and pre-COVID?
Well, I would say pre-COVID, I would certainly have to agree with Keisha. Getting all of the great minds that were in the room to come to an agreement on exactly what our project will be. The good news is that we had a lot of great ideas and suggestions. The challenge was deciding what direction to go in. So I think that was certainly something that was pre-COVID that we dealt with. Unfortunately, I can't really call it post-COVID because it's still on us. So COVID is still an issue for us. But what I would say more than anything else is that the struggle for me has been just the abrupt endness of how our class ended. I was really looking forward to the classes on a monthly basis, seeing the smiling faces. There was one day where I didn't worry about work. I just went in and spent time with who I thought were great people and really had great ideas and just really spent a lot of good time in building relationships. And I'll be honest, I've missed that. I really looked forward to it. And the way it ended is probably what was such a challenge for me, is that it was so abrupt. No graduation, no finality to it. It's just like, boop, we're done. So this virus has caused that situation for me, and I just hate the way that our session ended.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that we miss being with each other once a month. And like you said, it's that one day where you have to turn your phone off and you don't have to worry about work. And it's just something you don't get to experience. So we did get cheated of that experience, the last couple of months, but, we're making the most of it. And everybody mentioned the group project. So my final question I'm going to ask everyone is, how will Class 10's group project help the community during this time of crisis? And I will start with Carla.
So I think that our podcasts are going to make people aware of what they can go out and do to help in the community. I mean, Meals on Wheels. I know myself, I plan to at least join as a sub to start with so that I can relieve people that can't make their route every week and try to do that and deliver meals. It's, it's a great program, and I'm so proud of Velvet for stepping up and offering to be on the board for them. I mean, it was a great tour, but again, we were limited by our tour even when you see our podcast, because we couldn't go into certain areas because of the condition, the restrictions. But I think it's going to open people's eyes up. I hope. I plan to share it on Facebook or wherever with other folks.
I think that one thing that's really fun about the podcast is that it gives folks kind of a central location to go and, like Carla said, find out how they can help, how we can be a part, where's the need, what's going on in some of these different things. Like the insight that we got on the nonprofit day, they're going to get that via the podcast. I mean, somewhat to a degree, the podcast that we're putting out for people to see. And so I also think it gives a great opportunity for expansion and folks to add their nonprofits to the podcast in the future. And then, like Carla said, you get to share it on social media and blast it out. And now folks can see, hey, I want to help like Velvet and Carla are, and I want to be a part of a route, and I want to do what I can to help out this community. I mean, I've heard people say I've been a part of this community for 20 years and never knew that was even there. And so that's a shame. It's 2020, and we ought to be sharing the good news of things that are happening in our community. And I think this podcast gives a great opportunity for that.
Very true. And Velvet, do you have anything to add to that?
As everyone said, it's going to definitely bring awareness to the needs of the community and opportunities, how you can help and volunteer. And so, that's one of our main goals, is definitely bringing that awareness of the need and just where those opportunities are. So it gives a little bit of a snippet of each area that we focused on, but then also we'll be able to kind of provide information if there's other volunteer opportunities as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have everybody back on, and we're just going to sign off. So we are Class 10, the best class, of course, and we're just signing off as Class 10. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you've enjoyed our series of vlogs or podcasts. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.